6:02. I'd like to call the November 16th, 2023 meeting of the Capital Planning Committee to order. I'd like to welcome everyone back to another season of capital planning. We have two new members this year. They're certainly not new to the capital planning process, but they're representing their respective boards and committees. So I'd like to welcome David Brasla from the Library Trustees and Dennis King from the school committee. Dennis can't be with us tonight, but we want to welcome him. And then we have some members that are returning they've served in the past. Just want to welcome them and introduce them for those that may be watching. So Joe Tierney is a citizen member. And then we have Chris LaValle, that's a citizen member. David Goslin from the Finance Committee, and Darlene Lucy, our town accountant. And we're also joined by our town manager, Paul Cohen. So just to remind everyone that may be watching the meeting for the first time, our mission in the Capital Planning Committee is to assist the town manager in developing an annual capital budget. And we do that by reviewing all the requests from all the departments and reviewing those, prioritizing them, and then we make a final funding recommendation to the town manager. So we'll move into the hearings. First on the agenda, we have technology. However, Lauren Cochran, CCA director, had emailed me, and she has a performance rehearsal going on tonight. So she had asked if we would help her out by taking the CCA out of order. So I'd like to ask Lauren if she would come up to the podium and. Yeah.
Hi, this is my first time doing. Is the microphone working?
Yeah.
Oh, good. It's my first time doing it, so I thought it was the planning committee, and I texted Deirdre Conley, and I said, "What room is it?" And she goes, "What? We don't have a meeting tonight." And I'm like, I'm very confused. But I apologize because I've been a little ill for the last week, and I'm think I'm recovering, so I won't get near anybody. Thank you for having me here. And apparently, you want to know why I think the CCA needs to be renovated or have some funds put towards it. Basically, there's two things. The outside of the building, and I know that Christine Clancy did a report, the outside of the building definitely needs to be scraped and repainted. Shutters were actually sort of tipping off of the building, and I know Paul took care of it because I said, I think a shutter might fall on somebody's head, but they took care of it. But it does need to be updated, the outside, to make sure that it's good. I like to think of the Center for the Arts as sort of the Queen of Chelmsford. I know that's a little sexist, but I think it's such a beautiful building, and it's everywhere. It's even on the mural in Concord, West Concord. When I went on that mural walk, there it is. The CCA is right there, front and center on one of the Concord's murals. So it's a very important building. That being said, the interior, as you know, there was a flood in February, and now the facilities was great, and everyone took care of it. And the room, the Cabaret Cafe, now if you haven't been in there, it's charming. And when it's all decked out, it's beautiful. And the rents for that place have increased. People walk into that room and they want to rent it. We've had a prom party last week. We've had mercy meals. We've had baby showers. Upstairs, they love it just as much, but it hasn't been as rented. The strategic plan asked for more theater in the town. So that being done, we started the playground with Lexi Lattimore started it. That's why I have to go to rehearsal tonight. We have a musical in December. But the upstairs is not really conducive towards theater because it's an old town hall building. So when you think, and I'm a theater person by nature, when you walk into a giant beige room, it reflects light. And what you don't want in a theater is you want darker colors. So if you go into any theater in Boston, you're not going to have a light or a white room. So if we go with a dark color, I thought, how beautiful to make it sort of an elegant, all old theater look with the dark blue and maybe some gold filials, rich velvet curtains that would help block out light. And we would have to have sort of a stage extension. And also, the stage is light oak, as is the high school's. But Tom Peterson covered the stage years ago. You don't know that there's a light oak stage underneath it. You cover it with black marley or something so that it doesn't reflect light and the performers are seen more. So my goal is to renovate the upstairs so that you walk in, and I want it to be an aha moment, but also a beautiful place for performances and even rentals. And I think if you do walk in, and so I found the color scheme that I thought would actually lend itself to the Queen of Chelmsford, as well as just being stunning. And that's what I'm hoping. I am going to be applying for a grant from the Mass Cultural Council. They do have a facilities renovation grant. And I went to a meeting the other day, and they said, yes, your project would fit because the town wanted more theater. We are bringing in a theater company from Lowell that's going to be our second resident theater company. They lost their home in Lowell. They're called Dramatically Incorrect. So far, they've been wonderful. They already brought some costumes for us to use, and they're going to be doing 4 shows a year at the CCA. And then when we do our 3 shows a year, there will be a lot more theater in Chelmsford. So that's why we would like to renovate the upstairs. Any questions? No questions. It would be beautiful.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the theater equipment project.
Oh, the theater equipment. Okay, so that being said, we have, luckily with Dramatically Incorrect, they're loaning us about 9 microphones for our musical. Our musical has a cast of 29, many middle schoolers from Chelmsford and also some surrounding towns. We also have some adults in it. I know Jeff Doherty's playing Santa Claus, so I hope you all can come. But we don't have any body microphones, and when you do pieces, you want people to be heard. So we're looking to get some microphones and audio backpacks, and then some additional stage lighting. With this new theater company coming in, the good news is they're bringing in some of their lights. So the lighting may be less than we need because they're letting us use all of their lights. And currently they're letting us use some of their microphones, but we don't want to rely on that. So that's the theater equipment. And then to extend the stage slightly further out so that you can put sets. When you have the old town hall, you really don't have any wing space, and you don't really have any performance space. And if you want to create sort of backdrop and settings, we just want to extend the stage out a little bit more. It won't be a permanent structure. It would be a Wanger stage. And I know that Paul loaned us the DPW one, which is for the town outside. And we're using that to see how that works. But that's what we would ideally like, a little portable stage up there that we can then use for other purposes. But it would extend it so that you can actually have more sets on stage as well.
Okay,
So
great.
that lighting and sound, and that's it.
Any questions on the theater equipment project committee? Okay. And then the next project, Lauren touched on this earlier, and also with us tonight is our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy. So if you'd like Director Clancy to just to discuss the exterior improvements project.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, this is for the exterior improvements to the CCA. Sorry. This is proposed for $95,000. I think we have been looking at this for some years. Potentially, we're looking at as operational expense, but it really is becoming more of an exterior improvement. The exterior, especially on the sides, I think shown here, there's some of the shutters are starting to rot. They're historical too, so they're going to be somewhat costly to put, to replicate. So that would be part of the process, and also scraping and painting some of the painting that's starting to peel. It is, in terms of the shutters, we have removed a couple of shutters that were about to fall. So, and this project would be restoring those and putting them back. And trying to replace as many as we can as part of that project. So that includes is scraping, painting, and restoration of the shutters. Any questions?
Okay. Not seeing any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the CCA projects. Now we're going to go back to, let's just go back to Project 1. And then next we have our Municipal Information Technology Director, Ted Luter, with us this evening. Ted's going to discuss 2 projects.
Hello. First project is replacement of our core switches. Last year, we were given some money to replace our edge switches. We are almost done with that project. We're currently working on the police department. All other town buildings, town locations have been done except the library, which we hope to do in the spring. So core switches, they're the hub of our network. They're at the school administration building. All of the town buildings, not school buildings, go through the core switches. It's important because our network depends on it. There's really not anything else to say about it except it's, they're end of life. We've had them for 6 years, and it's time to replace them. Anybody have any questions on those, on that?
Ted, could you explain what would happen if they weren't replaced? Like, what's the risk of deferral?
The risk is, the risk is potentially that we wouldn't be able to upgrade the firmware, and there would be some cybersecurity challenges with regard to it. They are end of life, and that's what we would worry about. We have redundant switches, so we have 2 switches that each building goes into. So we could fail, if one failed, we could fail over to the other switch. So we try to make it so that, it's not so that we have room for trouble to happen. Yeah.
It's a question I'll be asking everyone, so
Oh,
don't
yeah.
feel singled out.
Yeah.
And it's because we've got like over $11 million of requests.
I know. Believe me, I know.
Okay.
This is, out of the 2 projects, this is the one that is number 1 for us. So, if we have to lose one, I prefer losing the other one. Do you want to switch to the next
Sure.
page? So the next page is updating our wireless. The access points are all of them are end of life. Some of them are, the youngest ones are like 6 years old. We have some that are older than 6 years old. We can no longer upgrade the firmware on them. And we also, because these attach to our firewall, we at the moment can't upgrade our firmware on our firewall, because if we do, these will no longer work. So that's that project. It's wireless, upgrade of the wireless in town with newer equipment that has will be faster and also more secure than the current APs we have. That's the project. What would happen if we didn't do it? We wouldn't be able to upgrade our firmware and our firewall, which is not we would like to upgrade, but we also don't go to the most recent firmware, so we probably could go a little while longer, but ideally we would like to do both these projects.
And is this network Wi-Fi used by the public or town employees, or is it used solely by the public?
This is Wi-Fi that's used by the public and by town employees. Basically, there's an AP right there above your head, sir. That's what we're replacing, those.
And you said that this project is secondary to the other one?
Correct.
Okay.
We would rather have the core switches.
Okay.
Let me ask a question, Ted, though. Like, if this failed, though, like, I'm concerned about now that our Munis is totally web-based. Like,
Yeah.
we go through the internet. Is that
That will have no effect on Munis. That's just wireless.
okay?
So it only affects wireless and our ability to upgrade our firewall.
I was just okay.
Upgrade the firmware on our firewall.
Do you have any spare Wi-Fi access points in case some?
We don't. In fact, we want to, in addition to replacing, we want to purchase some more. We had spares, and we've moved things around, but that only lasts so long. So there are no spares.
And how many do you have that you'd be
We
looking
have about 60 of them, and we probably need about 70 of them.
And could you do this if we couldn't fund all of this one, could you do it in phases?
We could do it in phases. Doing it in phases would not alleviate the upgrade portion of the firewall.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Right, thank you, Ted.
All right. Reach out to me if you have any more questions later. I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next project is actually, it's from the, this is submitted by our town clerk, Tricia Doris, and I'm just going to go to that slide. Let's see, it's three.
Good evening. I'm here again this year to ask for a continuation of the digitization project. We haven't moved to, request was deferred last year. We've been working with CPC funding to digitize all of our historic records. So we now have an abundance of wonderful digitized files that we really don't have a digital file management system to be able to properly index them and then make them accessible to the public. So it's wonderful that as we're restoring our historic records, we're preserving them digitally. But ideally, it would be really nice to be able to have a digital file management system with a public-facing portal that the public can be able to search through whatever accessible records are available. Back in '22, we had gotten a quote. The first priority would be the building inspector's files that we'd like to digitize. That they've got a space problem downstairs in their office, and we'd like to be able to alleviate the need for their paper records right within their space. We can move those paper files into the LL03 planning and zoning archival space for all of those permanent records, but they need to have access to those records on a daily basis. So we were hoping to digitize all of the building inspector's files first, and then move their physical copies into the archival storage. Then from there, we have all the flat maps, which are all over the building. Very difficult to retrieve when you need the physical copy of the maps and the plans, because they're very heavy, flat V files that are stored on top of each other. And then we have a storage room that's in the community services coordinator's office, like under the stairs, that has a whole bunch of rolled plans that are just in there forever. So we have a lot of people that do a lot of research on properties for various reasons, and we've had them go into those archival permanent storage spaces trying to dig through those files. And it's very tough on permanent records when you have people that don't really know how to handle them, and they're rifling through boxes or unfolding maps and refolding them and putting them in these files. So having these things available digitally would really help make these things much more available and more transparent for the public. So then from there, we wanted to move on to the other departments' permanent records. Again, having a digital file management system where it's easy for department heads to index and make accessible either publicly or just interdepartmentally. It's out of my area of expertise completely. I'm, into the physical stuff, and digital file management is a bit overwhelming. We've gotten thousands and thousands and thousands of digital files back, and I say thank you very much. Got them all on a hard drive, and I just don't really know what to do with them. So there's a lot of companies that do this. Inception Technologies is one that gave us the initial quote that we used to budget going forward. But again, I would just like to be able to, proceed with it, put out an RFP, and find out, what the real process is. If we continue to defer it, again, we keep the space problems that the building inspector has. We prevent accessibility to the public for being able to search these documents on their own, and it just, continues to kind of kick the can down the road with accessibility.
So the first year is for just the building inspector and the file management system?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds like kind of a monumental project.
It's pretty monumental, yes.
Do you have the staff on your side to handle things, or how does this project interact with
Well,
your
it's
staff?
we're managing we managed all of the physical files with a database that everybody has to come through my office to request a form to take out boxes and put boxes in and things like that. My office right now does not have the staff to manage every department's records. We would have to put a committee together to create a workflow for each department. I have a public records advisory committee right now. John is on it. We have a member of the library that's on it, Linda Prescott from the Historical Commission, and then Harrison Mayotte is now in my office, but he started as a resident on that committee. So I go to them when I need assistance with, putting something together. Fred Merriam has offered to help with starting to research other companies that offer this system, because the first step is scanning them, and then the second step is getting them into a digital file management system. So I don't know, Inception does the scanning, and then they use a company called DocuWare that they are selling that. It's almost you're going from a third-party app to a fourth-party app. I don't know if that's standard practice or not. So we need to do a little bit more research on what other companies offer and what their processes are. But there are a lot of different companies that I see at the town clerks conferences. And Fred Merriam's going to do some research for me and work with Harrison, who's also an IT person, just to kind of come up with a plan, so we would know how to get that workflow going.
From the estimate, how much of the 120 that you're asking for this year is the file management software?
About 7,000.
7?
Yeah. And then there's an annual fee, and and there's the other thing. It's complicated. It's like, well, for so many users and so much space, and so this is where I go, okay, it's getting out of my area of expertise. But the initial, I got a separate proposal for just that digital file management system, and the first it was $6,900.
Okay.
Any other questions?
How far back? How far back are you going in terms of the building inspector's files? I mean,
Everything that's in their office.
Basically everything they have.
Everything they have.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Yeah. That quote includes everything they have. Anything else?
Any other questions?
I think the obvious question is, going forward, when a new plan or permit gets applied for, is there going to be a system where that would then get entered digitally, or? Do you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Okay, so that's in real time.
Yes.
Okay.
So, whatever we have to keep permanently through the public records law, we would keep a hard copy. But if we don't have to keep a hard copy, it would just be, what's interesting for the public isn't necessarily something that we have to permanently keep. We can just keep it digitally. And we'd also like to be able to attach those records to Permitize, so that when somebody searches records within Permitize, they can actually see anything that's been pulled for that property before. That's ideally the plan.
Would it be tied to GIS as well?
I believe it can be tied to GIS.
Because you're going into the planning and the zoning, and I'm just wondering if, therefore, if somebody wanted to see what were the special permits issued for, some address on Main Street, I think that's how it would work.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think once you get a link, if there's a way to create a link in GIS, then that link would be able to be used across different formats. For as much as I know about it, anyways. All set?
Right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Trish.
Appreciate it.
And our next project is it's project detail sheet 23, and this is from the Cemetery Department. And our Superintendent of Cemeteries, David Boyle, is with us this evening. David's going to discuss a truck project.
Good evening, everybody. For my project, I'm here for truck replacement. Originally, I thought I could get another year out of this truck, and unfortunately, I just had to park it because the maintenance costs, the upkeep, were just ridiculous. This is actually the last of the steel dump bodies that we're using. I started with stainless steel bodies, and basically the bonus with the stainless steel bodies is the next truck I come in with, the next project I come in with for a dump truck will be just the cabin chassis, the hydraulics, and the plow, which would be a savings probably about $12,000 or so, because I can just take that stainless steel body off the last truck, put it on the new truck. And really, the reason I need that truck is we've had we've had a significant increase in interments throughout the town in the past few years. And also, with the project at Pine Ridge Cemetery, I do not do any more dumping as far as fill, loom, and so forth, because we're finishing up the back section of the cemetery. So everything's trucked to Fairview Cemetery now. So, and also during this time of year especially, it affects us because now I'm down to basically one truck because I have a leaf box on, which will be on till the last leaf's picked up. So, so definitely, you definitely feel it right now, and we've felt it since I had to park the truck. It's just the repair costs were just outweighed, fixing it. It's just I had to park it. So.
David, in the past, we've done like a cost share, like I know in the couple trucks that you purchased before, we used to do like a cost share with your department, like with your
Yeah, we did.
department.
We
Have you
did.
ever thought about
We
like
did in the
doing that?
past, but I'm not.
He did some years ago. When the investment interest was at an all-time, when the rates were at an all-time low. I think we moved away from that for a while.
Okay.
So.
And that was on his the perpetual care trust fund interest.
Yep.
Any other questions for
Questions?
David at all? No. Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And then the next two projects, projects 13 and 14 from the police department. With us this evening is Police Chief Colin Spence. Good evening, Colin.
Good evening. So the two projects that we have are the replacement of our air handler and an HVAC replacement for the firearms range. It hasn't operated properly for the last 3 years, and it's a critical need for our police department. We use it on a regular basis, especially with the new regulations that we have in the state. We have to qualify 2 times annually, and every officer has to go through there. And the issue that we're really having, it's creating negative pressure inside the building where the firing range is. And if you've ever seen where this unit is, and from the pictures, it's on the ground. It was never installed properly when it was put in. So it's just creating a lot of issues. It's one of the AC units doesn't even work at all. And it's really a health and safety issue for us. And I would invite anybody to come by and see it at any point. It's pretty, I can take in, you can see right away that it's definitely in disrepair. And it's not something that we could fix. It's got to be replaced. I'm here to take any questions anybody might have.
The replacement, where would it go?
Around the same area. I spoke with Christine Clancy from the DPW. Her and her staff have come out and looked at it several times. It would be a whole revamp. We want to look at a scope of work as far as changing the whole setup. It's very dated, and it's just not functioning properly. Something could be a lot more efficient from what is there now.
So it's more than a replacement. It's essentially a redesign?
It would include a redesign also.
Okay.
That's correct.
Would the new one be mounted on like a concrete pad or something of that nature?
Yes, that would be the plan, and that's what the issue with this is, with having a lot of rock, because it is directly on the ground. It's not, there's no pad underneath it.
And how old is that, Colin? Was it put in right when
The building.
was?
It was just after the building. And we did have an issue with the contractor at the time that did the whole range back then, so.
So that would be roughly like 20 plus years.
20
if I'm-
plus years
yeah.
ago, yes, that's correct. If there's any other?
And then our next project is Project 14.
Okay, Project 14, I actually moved it up after taking over and really examining the light poles in our parking lot. We're having significant issues with them. As you can see from just the picture of one of them, there's significant rot on the poles themselves. The bases are okay. The cement bases we could probably reuse. Poles themselves are leaking, and what the issue it's causing is with our cameras. Many of these poles have cameras on them. The cameras are malfunctioning. So they're shorting out, we have to keep rebooting as soon as it rains, we lose like 4 cameras. So that's definitely one of the issues with it. But the poles themselves, you're welcome to come and take a look at them at any time. You can definitely see that they're definitely end of life. Same thing, they're over 20 years old, and they're aluminum.
Any questions on the committee for the chief?
If you had to prioritize these two, which one would you select as top priority?
They're both very important. The poles themselves are definitely, I'm just afraid of a storm that, they are in pretty bad disrepair. They were initially on for 2028, and I moved them up after I went and looked at them. And we're upgrading some of our cameras also. That's one of the issues that we have. If they're just going to keep shorting out, it's not going to really help to upgrade them until. So.
And are all 16 pools in kind of equally bad shape, or are some?
Pretty
worse
much,
than others?
yes. Just some between salt, sand, everything in the area. Any other
Right.
questions?
I think we're good. Thank you for the explanation.
Forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next on our list is, we then transition to Elder Services, the Senior Center. So one project this will be presented by both our Elder Services Director, Debbie Siriani, and DPW Director, Christine Clancy. Just going to forward to those. These are projects 4 and 5.
Good evening. The first project is the is floor replacement, and it's pictured. This is a piece of the dining hall, which is over 30 years old. Linoleum areas of it are starting to, as you can see in this picture, crack, become deteriorated. We have made some replacements. This hall is used pretty frequently. We use it for town meeting, for other functions, and Debbie can expand upon that. And then the other part of the project is also to replace the main corridor area, which right now is, I think, is carpet and has mats over it, so replacing that as well. The primary cost of the repair would be this great room, but it did include to really do everything at once. There are some tripping hazards, I think, being caused in the main corridor. I don't know if Debbie, if you want to add anything to that.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the original flooring, 34 years old, and we have done. It's been deferred for a few years. We've tried to patch it and cover it, and this is what happens when we get it waxed and cleaned and stripped. It just won't accept it anymore. And this is the dining hall, so this is a food establishment. So what we've done now is bought a lot of big mat rugs and tried to cover up the worst part of them to make it, a safer environment. But rugs aren't fabulous either. It's mostly around the serving area and also some of the entrances and some of the dance floor. So that's what we're looking for. And then the main T, which is the entrance walking in to the building, and then, straight out as a T to our treasure shop and social day program and to the main hall. That was a rug that was very, very badly stained and looked very bad. So the Friends purchased for us a large runner years ago, and I don't know how many times we've put it in as a work order that we have bubbles in it and it's a tripping hazard, and so it's just not working very well as an entryway to our building. And we have over 200 people coming in every day, so it really is something that we can't wait on anymore if it's possible for you to fund. Thank you.
What would the replacement material be?
Probably would be It would be tile. Looking at like the the linoleum, or I guess vinyl really is what we do nowadays.
$205,000 is a big chunk of money. Could this be phased? Are there some areas that are worse than others that would be logical to do at different times?
Could potentially, you could phase it. There's two pieces to this too. There's the great room and then there's the main corridor. So those could definitely be phased in terms of, cause even looking at maybe different material, even though, or different, I think we're looking at the conventional square tile for the great room, whereas maybe we haven't really decided on what exactly for the carpet replacement, but that would probably be more of a vinyl. So it could be, I guess is the answer. It's just the more you phase it, it's just the more complicated and
More expensive.
And we did use some of our operating budget to do part of a phase. The part that was very, very damaged near our serving area, we did probably I don't know, would you say maybe 12 by 20?
12 by 10, 12 by 20 maybe.
Maybe 12 by 20 section. And what happened was the abutting older tiles all chipped. So then it's causing even more problems, because we did try that, to just do, let's do the worst part of it. And yeah, it looks and is, not functioning well. So we did try that.
Christine, is there anything underneath there that's damaged? Because that is a good picture to depict how bad it is. So unfortunately, it looks like it may be something else going on underneath there, or is it just the flooring,
We think it's just flooring. It's just 30 years old. So, I'm sure there's going to have to be some potential resurfacing and maybe some minor grouting, but we didn't see anything that seemed to be any concern from what facilities had looked at.
Okay, great. It sounds like, doesn't look like any more questions on the flooring, so the next one involves an elevator.
So elevators are becoming quite common, as you see in replacements last year and this year. And it's not a great project. It's just once an elevator goes down, then that becomes a really, really big problem. The senior center, being 2 floors, and so that's in terms of ADA access, if we ever need to use the elevator going down to the lower level. So it is 31 years old. It's one of our, we have a number of elevators that are, like I said, we have a plan looking at the next 5 years replacements. We have right now some that were just approved last year we're working on. So it's not our oldest elevator in town, but 31 years, it's pretty aged. I think we also have on here, and when we talk about the schools, we have other elevators that are, older and younger. So it was probably right in the middle of our age of elevators that we're suggesting to be replaced. I think anything past 25 years, you can start to have problems, whether that be a repair, but it could also be a failure. The problem with an elevator is sometimes you don't know until it fails. And so, we haven't, I think it's been functioning. We've had minor things here and there. There's nothing that's alarming, or it's still functioning. But when we see something of this age, we recommend replacement. And so it is a priority. We have a lot of elevators to do across town, and this being one of the important ones to provide the accessibility as needed in the senior center.
I remember in the discussion of elevators last year, there was maybe 1 or 2 of them that were of the style or something that had, it was hard to get parts.
That's us.
Is this one of that
I think
type?
across all elevator, it's a very tricky. Parts are difficult to get across, I guess, all elevator companies. There's only really a couple elevator companies out there too, so prices can fluctuate. So I think it's more just the industry.
Okay.
I know last year, because we have right now appropriated for town offices, I think it was looking at the space, whether you can fit a gurney in there. And I think that was discussed last year. That was town offices. And the thing is, if you start to look at expanding, so the replacement is in kind in terms of the same space. I think town offices, that's one of our smallest elevators, and if you were to ever expand that, that's where you're looking at, major renovations of the building. So this is in kind too. So hopefully we grandfather any code, and it is bigger than the town offices, but we're looking to reuse that space. Replace it so that we don't have repairs in the near future in the next 15 years.
And I believe but I just wanted to confirm it with you. That is the only elevator in the senior center. Is that correct?
There's
Yes.
there's one that goes, a lift that goes
A
up
lift, but-
to the stage. But this is the functional elevator to get downstairs and upstairs.
Yeah.
And priority-wise between the two projects, do you have, I mean, I know you want both of them, but if there's a priority between the two projects?
I guess my priority, I think both are very important. I know we were looking at the flooring as being very important. I can repair flooring. If an elevator goes down, I can't risk. We might be able to repair it, but I can't promise a repair. So I think there's more risk in an elevator. So that's my take. From a use, Debbie, I don't know if you have. Both are very important.
I would say if there were anything to cut, I would say maybe the main T part of the hall, rather than the main hall, which is a food establishment and has all kinds of people in and out of it all the time. But the main hall, I don't know. I'd have to defer to Christine because she knows more about elevators. So just have to defer to her.
We don't want to have to ask that, we have to ask that.
No, I
because,
understand that.
No,
I
but
understand
if-
that.
the limited funds with the amount of requests, so.
I look at it purely as
And
risk.
you know what.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is
priority,
all
the
that.
departments know what priorities there
Yeah,
are.
I mean, so for elevators, that's the tricky thing is it's working, it's great until it's not, and so it's hard. So it's unlike a lot of our other projects before us where this is not functioning anymore. The car is parked, the floor is chipping. But when I see a recommendation to replace it, I don't want, or we have roofs on here too. You don't want to see what happens when it fails. And so for me, I guess I look at risks, and an elevator is a greater risk than we can fix a floor, but it is still a very important project too.
Right, but if you lose that elevator, your whole downstairs
We can't
meeting
go
space.
downstairs.
Exactly, the
People with
risk-
limited
the-
age and abilities can't it's off limits.
It's an
Yeah,
ADA
Right.
it's
non-compliant
yeah,
issue, too.
it's an accessibility
Is
issue.
there any
but
kind of
it's
state money for ADA compliance kind of things
not
that we
that
can
I'm aware of.
apply for? or-
The other question, the other statement, or more of a question, but I kind of know the answer. Even if the elevator were approved at April 24 town meeting, what's your lead time? In other words, when do you think that elevator? So you really need the elevator to run not only till town meeting, but when do you think the elevator with the lead time would actually be replaced? I mean, you're talking quite a.
Yeah, so probably, but with the assessment design, you're probably talking the next, so it's not like a school where you have to do work in the summer too, so we have more flexibility, but my guess is the earliest the fall, but you might be looking at the following spring or summer. There's long lead
Yeah, so
times.
there's just a lead time for, like everything else, and but supply chain issues and so forth. So you're now hoping that this elevator will get you to 2025 maybe, or late 24. Yeah, so
Yes,
just
that's the
wanted-
thing too, is right,
just
this
wanted
is
to point
putting
that
it in the
out.
queue now for really replacement by 2025, I would say.
To Paul's,
But I can't wash the floor in a food
Right, no, I understand,
establishment
right.
until then either,
to
which is
Paul's
a bad thing.
point about the lead time, from a functional perspective, is there a better time period to actually do the construction work where it would be least disruptive to your operations, right? Because when the elevator is being replaced, you won't have access to the lower level,
You don't have ADA access, yeah.
right?
We will just have to make it happen. We've done it before and we'll just do it. But, I mean, there's no time that the senior center isn't busy, unfortunately. Maybe the middle of the winter where people are less likely to.
I was just thinking
Or
more like
maybe,
July.
maybe July.
Venture
I was just thinking
out.
July when
away.
people are away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Right, put them outside. Yeah, right. More outside.
Make a tent,
Yeah, right,
do a
Yeah.
carport.
Yeah, we're doing outside activities.
We did it during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next project, I'm just going to ask if Director Clancy just to, it's Project 8, it's for the Health Department, but since it involves a vehicle,
Oh, yes.
Christine's, I'm just going to transition to that slide.
So this is proposing to replace a 2011 Ford Fusion, and it recently received an inspection sticker. We actually looked at it, and it does have some structural damage that we think that it makes it really not repairable. So in that, we really look to replace it for the next calendar year. Mileage is 87,000, and we also proposing, it is hybrid currently, proposing an electric vehicle. We have been purchasing electric vehicles at the DPW and other departments as well. There are some grant opportunities in that as well, but this would fund the initial purchase, and it depends, I guess, what the grants change every year. So, but right now we're looking at least $7,500 rebate, potentially more.
I will say that car has had a lot of years of use, and it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's-
The photo, we couldn't fit a whole series of photos in, but the photos that I received from the health director
original. Is it
had some
Mark's old
extensive corrosion, so.
Yeah, there's extensive corrosion on the rear bumper. It was looked at by our DPW, and we cannot fix it. And so we do always see if we have a lot of vehicles that do have rust, damage, wear, tear. We can't fix this. And it's fortunate that it just received its inspection sticker. We don't know, it might not pass the next time. And it's still safe to drive, it's just it can't be repaired. And beyond the next year. But it is well used, and in terms of additional vehicles, to my knowledge, is that they heavily rely on this vehicle to get around. So, and I know, like our department, there's not vehicles that we just have sitting around. We have, many more people than we have vehicles.
Christine, as we continue to transition from gas vehicles and hybrid vehicles to electric vehicles, do we have enough charging stations in town, or is that addressed somewhere else? I know I saw a couple of other electric vehicles.
I think we do want to propose charging stations in town. We do have some. Are they in the ideal location? So we do want to add more here behind town offices. So, like, I came here tonight we have an electric vehicle, and I parked. So there's 2 electrical vehicles parked out front. So if a third one shows up, there's no one charging here tonight. So I do think, it is a genuine concern. But I think, hopefully, the fast charging stations are very expensive. They charge very quickly. It takes a day to charge a vehicle when that's not fast charging. The fast charging are much more expensive. The other ones are more. I think it's something we can try to squeeze one in here and there. We're trying to add them at town offices, maybe one more at DPW. I know the library. So I think it's difficult to get the fast charging ones in because of just the high initial cost, and but maybe some the ones that aren't as fast charging. But it is something we need to look at, is how we build that infrastructure.
But it sounds like it hasn't been a problem so far with the fleet
No,
of
I think we're okay. So an example is at DPW, we now have 4 electric vehicles, and we have 4 charging stations. And the thing with, if you use grant money, you have to open it up to the public, at least for some time. And so we do limit it. It's either a half hour, or I think we limit a couple hours at DPW. And when people do use it, especially people in the area that come to work. And then we have had a couple times where I go to charge and it's already used, but we usually can make it work. I think as we add more vehicles, though, then I think it's going to become more noticeable that we're lacking the infrastructure. Thank you.
Any questions? And then we'll transition to the next 2 projects involve the public library. And we have our library director, Leslie Kimball, here this evening. And also, these involve library facilities. So Director Clancy will likely help with the presentation on that. So we have, first one is the Adams Library roof. That's project number 6.
Want me to start?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Christine should just stand here and she's gonna talk about roofs and HVAC, and I'm going to nod and say what she said.
Thank you. Like I said, elevators, roofs are also something that's nice, fascinating project, but when a roof leaks and fails, you immediately want a new roof. So we do update our index or our report. We just recently received our update, and we do have a number of roofs on, looking at within the next 5 years. The library being one of them. So I guess the fortunate thing is this roof doesn't seem to have any severe leaks, but when they did the inspection, that there was definitely some of the asphalt shingles were completely deteriorated, and this was slated as one of the roofs where there was only 0 to 1 years of expected life remaining. So after that, you could have leaks, and this is over the main part of the library, and the library is used daily and by many people. There are solar panels on this roof as well, and so that's something that I did. I also did put into this cost, this would be into the construction, that those would have to be moved off and put back on as part of the process. We would design this and put this out to bid. And potentially, I guess same thing, if you get the funding, you're probably looking at maybe that fall of 2024. So that's why we're looking at 0 to 1 now. And so that's just thinking about construction timeline. Beyond that, potentially have some leaking. So
I'm glad you answered my question about the solar panel on the roof. That's what I thought in this little picture here. And something to consider, and I don't know if we have put solar panels on some older roofs, or if now you're rethinking what may have been done or what to do with the next project, like what's the best way that solar panels won't be a problem for the roof, whether it be corrosion long-term, or how are we doing with that, and
so we're looking
how much
at
more did that add to the cost to have to take it down? And
yeah, I mean, potentially added $50,000 to $100,000 for this, because you got to take it off, and we're actually looking at right now, I think it was closer to $75,000 for this. You got to take them off, you're going to put them back on. You got to make sure when you put them back on, you're not damaging the roof. So it's something we're looking at. I mean, I guess in hindsight, is should we have not put solar? But they also made us. They were very profitable over the past. We have made. We have gotten a lot of. We've really paid them off. Just about the solar panels. I think looking forward, if we put a new roof, we probably want to look at putting new solar. That's something we're looking into. But we're looking at the technology and the cost of that, and what's the cost of taking 10-year-old solar panels off, putting them back on for another, because essentially a solar panel is about 20 years. So if a roof is 20 years, you kind of want new roof, new solar panels. So the solar panels have about 10 years left, but we would look at either just putting them back or potentially upgrading them, but we have to look at that cost and also with the rebates, and so it's something we're still exploring, but we have baked in the cost to at least put them back.
okay.
Yeah, because what I don't know, and I'll say I don't know, is if you replace the solar panels, you don't want to put as many holes in the roof as obviously, unless you have to. Right. But I don't know if the replacement solar panels would be the same size and fit into the same fittings that these are. And I also don't know if now 10 years later, today's solar panels are much more energy efficient, that it would actually be worthwhile to replace them at this time for the going forward, sort of like any other technology upgrade. So I think that's, as you said, we're looking into that, because now would be the time to do it.
Right.
Exactly. That's why I brought it up. Exactly.
Because if you don't, two things are going to happen in 10 years. Either those are going to no longer be operational and obsolete, and then you either going to, the question of, do you want to then fiddle with the roof if you can't fit the new ones into that, or do you just lose the solar panels? And there's a cost out of that as well. So that's what we're looking into is, what is the market or benefit of, do we replace new solar panels in, their system at this time, or do you put these back up there? And I don't know if there's a market for 10-year-old solar panels either. Do you trade them out and then they go? Yeah, I don't know, but that's stuff we're going to look into, because that's it's a good question, and it's going to be this isn't the only roof project we're looking at, so this is going to be a general concern.
Right. Yeah. That's why I asked, was there any projects that we're stepping back and saying, wait a minute, we should wait for the roof and do it all as one new project versus putting new panels onto something that's halfway through the lifespan of the roof, you know?
Well, the key was when we did the $17 million energy performance contract, the big bang was the solar. That was how you were able to, so by the return on the solar, we were able to get a lot of work done by that offset cost. And so if we didn't have the solar, then you wouldn't have been, that project wouldn't have been feasible. And so and now the question is okay, now in 2024, what is the proper investment to do? And that's what we've got to determine in terms of the economic return from that.
Christine, just to clarify in the picture of the roof, right? The old Adams Library is in the lower left and the children's room is in the upper right. What portions of the roof
So the
are
portion is
included in
the
this?
large area that you see. I mean, it's really the dome and that area, the original, that is not proposed. It's really just I think this was all added is it 2020 or 2001 or 2000.
Basically the addition.
So
the
every-
addition,
everything
yeah.
that-
so that
that
whole
comprise-
16,000 square foot, that's that section right there. And then the dome piece, that we're looking at that for maybe next year, and that roof is not a concern right now.
Right.
Thanks.
The solar panels, are they serviced by a company specifically?
We do have a contract, and I'm going to forget the name of the contract. I mean, we do maintain the solar panels, and so we have solar panels that go out or not working, or so we do have a maintenance, and we do maintain the program. I cannot remember the name.
Would they be the ones to remove and put the panels back on?
We own them, so I guess we haven't. I don't think. I mean, that's more for maintenance for something of this size, and depending on how many roof projects we're looking at, which ends up being improving, we'd have to revisit that and see what makes sense. Would it be the contractor? No, I don't know the answer to that yet.
The reason why I ask is because I actually went through this recently with my own house, and I had hot water solar panels that were already on the roof, replaced the roof and put electric ones on as well. And the company that did the hot water, they said they would not service the panels if anyone else put them back on. So that might be something to look into. They had to be the ones to take it off and put it back on in order to maintain the service.
Okay. No, that's good to know. And I know in terms of whatever roofing contractor, there's a coordination effort because they also want to make sure their roof doesn't have so many holes in it. So there would definitely be a coordination effort, whether it's the contractor or if it's that vendor. Thank you.
Okay, so, and then the next project is number 7, which is it's an HVAC project.
So the HVAC system is also so the addition was 2000, so now we're at 2023. So when we get to 25 years, HVAC systems are really aged and are looking for replacement. And Leslie can speak to it, but there's been many failures throughout, in the past 6 months especially, and it's been related to controls, a lot of having resetting. We have a consultant or a contractor we're working with for those really remedial repairs. We also have an in-house HVAC technician that's able to make some repairs, but we're at a point where the system really needs to be further evaluated and assessed. The question here is, what is that cost? And so I think we had looked at a ballpark of $900,000, looking at maybe phasing it, because also a lot of these aren't rooftop units. These units are in the ceiling. The library, remains open every day, and so looking at how maybe phasing it. One thing that right after we put this together too is that we were thinking is we are probably at a point where we want to move forward with an assessment study to better estimate that cost and discuss phasing. And so just because this is such a critical building, we're moving forward right now to look at that assessment. And then, that will hopefully inform us. We know we need to spend probably close, like I said, the $900,000, but that assessment will better inform us of what's really needed.
David's very familiar with the HVAC at the library because we've lived it. We've lived it over the years.
Yeah, and we had a consultant look at it back in 2014 2014.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's about almost a
and-
decade ago.
Yeah, made some repairs at that point to extend the life, but not only is the equipment old, but the access is really
Yeah,
dangerous.
Is there a way to change the access? No, would you put it on the roof, or would you put it outside?
Also, if
I
we're
know
doing
it-
a
I
roof
know it's
project and
landlocked.
an
No, I know it's
HVAC
landlocked, too.
project, I mean, I don't know if there's I don't know, I mean, that's something I thought of, depending on if the roof is, it's something to think about. But the thing is that it wasn't originally put in when the roof was put in, so I'd have to look at that further.
It was originally intended to be put in a penthouse that was removed from the design as a cost savings measure when the library was also, the addition was also shrunk. So they ended up putting it in the ceiling space above the tiles, which means to access the equipment, somebody's got to go up on the lift and then physically manipulate themselves into the ceiling space. It's really
I was
quite
gonna say, we should have taken a picture of that,
Very-
of Aiden
That would have been a
out
better
Yeah.
picture of it.
So
on
the-
a lift, and then they have this long pole that they have to finagle up in order to press a button.
That's what I mean.
And I know
Put, like, the
Kevin,
ground in the back.
Right.
when he came over and
Kevin
looked at
Graves.
it,
Around it,
It's
and you would-
screened, yeah.
the,
he
the,
was astounded
yeah.
by
The
the
stu-
access.
At one point in the past, when Johnson Controls was servicing the equipment, they did a safety inspection and refused to continue to service the equipment in the existing location. And then the 2014 study suggested that maybe going to a different design concept with variable refrigerant flow units mounted on the wall rather than on the ceiling might make sense to avoid that problem.
And I think that's where the being able to do the assessment, as Christine said, to be able to really determine what the right design is for the building that's going to serve it well moving forward, that isn't going to continue to cause a safety problem with a company not servicing its own equipment, and to get those cost figures
Updated,
really nailed
yeah.
down, yeah, and updated.
Well, the other concern I have with the roof is I don't know if it's structurally constructed to support
Right.
that weight, so that could be the other problem, that it might be nice to say throw it on the roof, but the roof may not be able to support it, so could they be put on the ground?
They
Could it be
could.
Well, when they
ground-mounted?
design the roof too, I guess that's a question, is can they design it to take that structural load? That's
With
something.
today, with today's loads, which are different than the loads when the building
Yeah.
was constructed 20 years ago.
Right.
That's the concern I have, is you'd have the weight of the units, and you have the weight of the snow load.
And the solar panels that have
the
been
solar
added.
panels
that-
and the- right, and the today's seismic codes and everything else, so you may also looking at ground mounting.
Right, it might be possible to ground mount the units where the existing condensers are between the building and the parking
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, I think in talking with Christine, and looking at the various projects, we do have a couple projects that have gotten, pushed along. These are the two projects that would shut us down.
Yeah.
We've got about 150,000 visitors a year, about 90,000 items in our collections, and these are the two things, if we have the failure, we
They-
have to close the building.
David and I lived during periods of uncomfortable situations. It's not pleasant. Right? I mean, I'll just leave it at that. It was not pleasant to the patrons. It wasn't pleasant to the staff. It just, because you had some areas that were ridiculously out of balance. Like, especially describe it, too cold, too hot, and just it's.
And we
It's
certainly have
a big deal.
people, as it says in here, was included, people use us as a warming and cooling center throughout the year. We're open, 4 nights a week till 8:30. This time of year, we're open 7 days a week. So it's a building that gets a lot of use and needs to
And now
work.
You need a
now it
lift.
has a generator, so it can continue to run
Yes.
Yeah.
even in the event of an outage. And there are only 3 air handling units that serve the entire building, so if any one unit goes down the way that they're zoned, it takes down a significant portion of the building.
Yeah.
Was it the remodel that, it just astonishes me when I hear about projects where it looks like who did the work, who isn't accountable, and then we're needing to replace stuff, but that just is mind-boggling that it's so dangerous to go service
But
that.
you forgot the part about the budget and the value engineering, because that's what happened. The library, that was the third effort to do the library.
It was.
And therefore, you had to basically modify the project, as they call value engineer it, in order to get the project done at all.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things that were the, remnants of that.
And they have served the library. I mean, it's a 23-year-old
Right?
Yeah.
system, so, we're
Somehow we got
probably
through.
lucky
Yeah.
we've made it this far.
When is the assessment supposed to be complete?
We're actually just trying to scope it out right now. I mean, well, we've been talking with a consultant, so my guess is it would be happening this winter. We also have, through ARPA, a testing and balancing, and we were talking about, well, do we move forward with that? I think we still do, because we have to do the assessment, the appropriate, if it gets funded, so we need to move forward with testing and balancing. That's something we're doing right now. That will happen this winter. And then the assessment also likely this winter. We have a number of projects that we're just trying to get out right now, and so it's one of those we're just trying to. I would say this winter.
So how confident are you with the $450,000?
I mean, so to be quite honest, I mean, there's other projects here that we put down, like, so when parking lots, even roofs, we have flooring, we have square foot costs. HVAC are one of the hardest, because especially when we talk about how it was designed, my understanding is that it was discussed with previous, I don't know if it was JCI that said you're looking at about $1 million. And so.
It was C3 Consultants that did the 2014 study and provided the estimate.
So we know it's sizable. I know it's not a $200,000 project. I don't know if it's a 900, 1 million, 1.5 million. I don't think it's 2 million, but that's why we want to do the assessment to try to refine this number.
And are we, and given all of the discussion about where to put it, are we sure that if that assessment isn't done, would you still go ahead with the roof replacement and the solar panels?
I would still propose that as a project, yes, yeah.
Okay.
I would think, because we're moving forward the assessment. So the assessment will get done this winter.
Yeah, I
But
think
would you
both-
go forward with the roof replacement
Oh,
think
without
that-
having the
without
assessment?
knowing?
I don't think the units are going on that roof.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, I just don't
I
see
think
it.
there's other options, and so,
We put them on the ground.
They-
yeah,
They weren't built for it.
I mean, I think it's something we would have a conversation maybe with the roof designer, but I think since there's other options, I think we would probably just move forward with the roof project.
yeah, two of the 3 units are half the size of this room.
Yeah, that's not going
All
on the
right,
roof.
yeah. All right, never mind.
Yeah, it's a pitched roof too, so it's not.
Right, it being a
That's true.
pitched roof, you'd almost have to build a
Yeah,
penthouse
exactly.
even
Yeah,
getting
you'd
into
almost have to
construction.
It's
All right.
not gonna happen. And then never mind the aesthetics of it as
That's the
well.
thing, is where it
It
is,
would look
and so.
yeah, it
Yeah.
wouldn't look that good.
You might be able to build something on, I mean, we have to, like, you might be able to build something on the ground mounted that looks aesthetically pleasing.
Just a question on the assessment. If you were, given the discussion about a possible ground mounting location and other details, would you be looking for any capital funds to do like a larger scale assessment, or is that something like just through an operational budget that's?
So right now, I think we're looking at a study, like an assessment and study, not the design, but an assessment. And so I think we can do that now with what we have.
Thank you.
I have one other question, and it probably is maybe too big of a scope, but because it was such a odd place and to get a service and all that, was there any alternative, like mini splits, or is it too big of a building to try to do that as an alternative, or?
I think it's a pretty large space. I mean,
Okay.
I think there's a lot more options now, so it's worth discussing, but it would be a lot of units, my guess is.
The 2014 design concept was mini splits, what they call VRF, which are a networked series of refrigerant units that are tied to larger outdoor condensers. That's the technology that they were proposing, but that technology has advanced a lot since 2014, so there are going to be some newer options now available that might make sense.
One other question, this is probably for you, John. The ARPA section, I know it's only 53.5, but is that something that we're gonna have toward this that can drop that number down, or what's the ARPA number there?
So that's just
That's the amount
that's
that
the
was
test.
already
Yeah,
proposed.
that's the
Balancing.
testing and balancing that we're just moving forward with. I do think the testing and balancing will inform us with
So- oh,
some of
so
the
that's
assessment.
already
So the
been
testing and
accounted for. I
balancing
gotcha.
and the assessment will go forward. And so I think in the testing and balancing, if they can't achieve some of the necessary, like getting back to what the original metrics were, then that will inform us in supplement with the studies. But that's already been appropriated.
Got it, thank you.
Does anybody have any more discussion on HVAC, or you all?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the last department hearing we have for tonight, but we have, so then next we move on to discussion and questions. I just wanted to mention, so as you review the large spreadsheet that's like about 8 pages, that's a summary, you'll see that, I know we've said similar comments in years past, but this year we truly have our work cut out for us with, we received 41 project requests, and it totals over 11.18 million, which is one of the largest totals ever. And when you look out, it's not just this year. I think, we're seeing some of the effects of inflation and also a number of older municipal and school buildings in the community. You can see that it's pretty much in that range until you get out to fiscal year 29, it decreases. But, for the 5-year, if you take all the project requests, you're over 53 million. So, as the committee members are asking tonight, we'll definitely have to, ask every department their top priorities because, it's impossible that we can fund it all, even though, if in an ideal world with unlimited resources, we would try to fund as much as we could. That being said, last year's capital plan was just around 4.4 million before we applied the recaptured funds, which brought it down a little over a couple $100,000. So given all that we've heard tonight, I did want to just introduce the concept that we'll most likely be looking at a capital budget. To be realistic, I think we have to look at it increasing to around maybe possibly the 5 million level. We'll see how it all settles out, but just to be realistic, I think it's something that, it's just, given all of the requests and all of the needs, I don't see that it would be possible even to do the absolute top necessities at 4.4 million. So just something to keep in the back of your mind as we hear additional requests. Anyone, just open up to the committee if anyone has any discussion or questions.
It also seems like there's a larger number of projects that are on this year's capital request that were deferred from previous years, right? So we keep on pushing the projects out, but at
Yes.
some point, that's not sustainable, so.
No, that's a good point. The next item was discussion of the review and acceptance of the minutes from December 8th, 2022. Given that David was not present for that meeting, Chris was, Joe was, I was. I don't know if we have.
I was not.
You were not? Okay. So we may put that off till the next meeting. We'll ask the committee to accept, to review and accept it. Do we have any, next section is public comments. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to make a comment to the committee? Okay. Not seeing anyone?
John, I had one other
Yeah,
question, and
sure.
I probably should have asked it because it kind of was after, and it's a smaller ask, but the car that they were looking for, it's only 50,000, but when we were looking to go all electric, and those vehicles are so much more expensive, do we consider not going electric or go back to hybrid or gas? I mean, because of the cost, and that's the
Yeah.
problem with the cost of that. And it's only a small piece of the budget that we're talking about, but those are things that I think of that we need to think about what we can afford.
We have a policy, we're a green community, and if we were to deviate from the green or the electric vehicle policy, we would then sacrifice our grant receipts and recipients from the, energy programs that the state provides. So to save like $20,000 on a vehicle could cost us multiples of that and the loss of grant funding from the state as a green community.
And the 50,000, I think is the estimate for the electric, so it wouldn't be more than that.
And Director Clancy mentioned we may be eligible
Also
for
get rebates.
7,500 rebate
National
on that.
Grid and others.
So we, no guarantees, but it sounded to me like we anticipate that it's a high likelihood we will be eligible for a rebate, but I'll let
Is
Yeah.
hybrid an option to still qualify for the green, or are there also grants for that? I just look at, that's a small piece, but I look at what if it was, then when we get to the point where they think they can do that with a fire truck and like bigger equipment and bigger costs. That's the only reason why I want to mention
Yeah.
that, to consider with the long-term thought process.
So the $50,000 was, we actually did procure 2 vehicles, a Volkswagen all-electric, and they're all-wheel drive. And we actually got $14,000 in rebates. So in total, the actual price ended up being only $34,000. So I guess with the rebates, I think it's still actually really reasonable, price-wise, because if we were to get it, and that's a small SUV, so for gas, it would probably was probably a little more expensive, or about the same, depending on what size. So right now, I think it's working out with the rebates. We put in 50 just because of you have to pay for those costs up front, and then you get the rebate, and sometimes it takes time. And those rebates can change year to year, so we don't know exactly what they are next year.
I mean, municipalities, I think, are a great way where you can justify, okay, going all electric because you're staying local. But the concern about infrastructure and charging stations, I think, then it brings in the whole other cost and planning. But no, thank you, Christine. I appreciate that.
And we're looking at grant opportunities for charging stations as well.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other items they wish to discuss at all? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We have a
I
second?
have a second. Yeah, I
Seconded by
second the
Joe.
motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Our next meeting will be November 30th, due to the holiday break next week.